Ladies and gentlemen, in this episode, you are going to hear opinions. And while the podcast is endorsed by Uriah Heep, the opinions of the host and various guests do not necessarily represent the opinions of the band or any of the members past or present. With that being said, let's celebrate the music of Uriah Heep. Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, here to wrap up Season 12 with a double dose of a song from Fallen Angel. The song is called Gimme Love, which was released originally as the B-side of Love or Nothing. And then the alternative version, which was released just for this deluxe CD that I'm working off of. And that version is called Struttin. And we're going to get into it. I'm a little sad because I've really enjoyed this era of Uriah Heep. And we're gonna have a couple of member changes again at the end of this season going into the next season. But also we're not, because next season is going to be a little bit crazy. And we're going to talk about that later. First, let's just get right into the music because that is the most important thing on planet Earth. This is Gimme Love by Uriah Heep, a bonus track from the album Fallen Angel. Wow, how does Uriah Heep leave a shuffle off of an album? That's pretty amazing. I don't think we've had that before. Maybe we haven't, I'm just not recalling. Because sometimes once I start listening to a song, I forget that it's a bonus track. It's just a Uriah Heep song at that point. So it's very possible that they have before, but it's kind of interesting because they're so strong on the shuffles that they would have left one off. I really like what I'm hearing here, but again, it kind of follows that same pattern. We've got the backing vocals coming in, giving you the basic song title, and we've got the instruments backing them up, which is really nice. But I love the sound of the vocals here too. This is another one where I think the blend of it is just fantastic. Interestingly, I have a guitar in the right ear, and that guitar really sounds like Mick's guitar from Tears in My Eyes. I know I've said that a couple times, but it really seems to have that sort of right exact flavor to it, to my ear. And I really like the sound of it, but it's a kicking song. I mean, it just comes in right out of nowhere. It just kicks off and we're on the ride. The train's going. It's not even warming up. It just took off. And I like that. I think it's nice to have a song that does that once in a while, that doesn't need some kind of build to get into it. It just goes. And that's pretty cool. Okay, that's a pretty nice groove there, and I love the dynamics on the bass. The guitars are strong. Everything just sounds nice and full here. The production's great. I think we're off to a good start.
When I was only 16, well, give or take a year or more, I got to thinking about the life I'd led, and I threw it right out of the door. I got to get to some of this heavy jive that the older folks talking about. So I strutted my stuff to the local club to see what I was leaving now. Looking for looking for love.
That's a really interesting vocal. There's parts of it where it's almost like he's narrating, and I don't think that. I guess that would fall into the category of rap, just not rap as what we typically associate it with. But the spoken word was considered rap. I mean, if you look at Ant Rap by Adam and the Ants, that's considered rap. It doesn't necessarily have to be like gangster rap or anything like the kind of modern rap that we hear today. Rap was just, kind of speaking. And it's kind of interesting to hear him do that. It's a really different vocal style for him. And maybe that's why they left it off of the album. I don't know. Maybe they thought, hey, this is a cool song and let's use it to sell the singles, having that bonus track that people can't get on the album, as we've talked about so many times on the show, is a great marketing ploy. And, the album had plenty of songs on it. So it was a normal full Uriah Heep album. So, you never really know why those things were done. But I really love the way it goes in from that sort of funky verse back into that powerful chorus again. Really nice transition there. Lots of power. Interestingly, I'm getting all the guitars in my right ear and Mick is normally in the left. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. I don't know if that's Ken or not, because Ken usually is in the right ear. Maybe we can tell as the song goes on, but I really like the sound of it. It sounds really, really strong. Okay, so I heard two guitars through that. So maybe I'm just not hearing Mick during the verse and chorus, and that's very possible, just by the typical way that the songs were mixed. Now, being that this was a bonus track, it might have been mixed differently or at a different time, but overall, the mix seems pretty consistent with the album. So I'm just going by that past history of what we've figured out based on what we've heard. Either way, it sounds really good, though, regardless of who's playing what. I think it sounds fantastic. I think there's a lot of really nice snare work in here, some good drum dynamics. Really like the funky bass, and it's a good song.
Seated at the foot of the stage, I'm waiting for the fun to begin. And there in the lights stood this heavy chick with the cutest belle that I'd ever seen. She smiled at me, she did her dance, took me by surprise. The way she wiggled her hips and she shook it out, right between the eyes, looking for...
Yeah, I don't know what it is that feels different about this lyric for me. I mean, maybe it's because it is some spoken word and some singing that is kind of throwing me off, but it really feels like a whole different dynamic. Not just for Uriah Heep, but really for John Lawton and the stuff that I've heard him do. I like it, though. I think it works. Sometimes you just got to tell a story, and it doesn't all have to be melodic. He's got the kind of voice where he can do that. He's kind of in that right pitch where he can almost work like a storyteller just speaking, and then just throw in some accents, which are really nice, very powerful. I really feel like this is an experience that he's lived and is retelling. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. But as I've always said, that is the sign of a great singer, somebody who can tell a story, especially one that isn't even theirs. But they can put themselves in that moment or in that person's eyes or whatever, and be almost like they're living through that person without having the experience and being able to convey it to us, the listener. That's some good stuff. And I can equate that to singers like Reba McEntire, who have written one song. So everything that you've heard, all that passion, the emotion that she puts into her vocals, she's not even telling her own stories, or not even stories that she made up. She's taking lyrics that other people wrote and putting all that emotion into it. And, obviously there's some of that here because some of the songs Ken wrote and, some of the songs John Lawton had a hand in, but there's a lot of him telling other people's stories as well. And I think that he does such a great job of it with the amount of passion and that level of emotion that he puts into every vocal that he does. Even here, when he's just talking, like you can tell where he's like, yeah, and just feels it. I love that.
Looking for love. L.O.V., I'm looking for love. Yeah, all right. After the show, she came.
Okay, so I think I've kind of figured out the guitar situation. I'm going to say that that's a slide guitar that Ken is playing in the right ear, and Mick is doing some muted picking in the left ear. It's a little quieter on Mick's side of things, so it was a little harder to tell, but I think that's what's going on. In any case, it sounds really good. I love the effects on that. It reminds me, and I can't think of the song, but there was it might have been off of Joe's Garage, but there was something that Zappa did that had that same sort of effect to it. And I'm pretty sure it was Joe's Garage. I want to say it was the Wet T-shirt contest song, although my memory might not be serving me. It does that a lot when I need it to, as I get older. But in any case, it just has such a great sound to it. It really is kind of different because it feels almost out of place from the song. It's almost like it was recorded in a different studio. It has a different tonality to it, a different EQ completely. But at the same point, it fits so well that I'm just going to enjoy what I hear.
After the show, she came and sat down, said, "Hi, son, what's your name?" I said, "Never mind that. Think about this. Loving's the name of my game." She said, "That's all right, but it'll cost you some." Said, "Tell me what's the price of the day?" She said, "20 down and a wind ring, and everything will be okay. Looking for love."
So I'm of the mindset where if you're introducing yourself to each other and one of you doesn't even want to give your name, you're just like, yeah, whatever, I'm all about love. And you say, what's it going to take? And she goes, a bunch of money and a wedding ring. And she still doesn't know his name. I'm going to guess this doesn't end well for any of them. It just can't. That's not love. It can't be. Oh man, I wish it hadn't have faded out. I would have loved to have known what was happening with those guitars. That was a nice play right at the end there. Love where that was going. I love, as I've said on all the songs that fade out, I love when John Lawton just is riffing, when he's just kind of going off, saying whatever's on his mind at that moment, whatever he's feeling, whatever the music is making him feel and the story is bringing out of him. I love when he does that. He's one of the best people for that. What a powerful song, though. Lots of backing vocals. Again, kind of some repetition here, but I think that it's a strong song, and I'm glad at least it got a release as a B-side because I think it was worth people hearing. And we're going to check out the other version here now, the Struttin version, which was the original. Probably my guess, based on the little bit I heard of it earlier, would be just kind of like the working version of it. Let's record it, kind of mull it over, see where it's at. Let's record it and play it for the producer because he's not here today, or whatever the case was. I'm glad they recorded it because it's pretty cool. It actually has a nice production to it, considering, but it wasn't the final studio version. So we're going to get into that now. Here is Struttin'.
Take a year or more. I got to thinking about the life I'd led, and I threw it right out of the door. I gotta get to some of this heavy jive that the older folks talking about. So I strutted my stuff to the local club to see what I was leaving out. Looking for.
So right off the bat, the first thing I noticed that's different is that it didn't start with the chorus. It didn't start with the faster beat, backing vocals, singing the song title, which obviously was added later, and that fit in more with the rest of the album. I kind of like just starting off with this funky little bit because you really don't know where the song is going. The other way, you've already heard the peak of the song. You're getting the chorus basically. So you're going to hear that again. But with this little funky start, that really kind of leaves the rest of the song to your imagination. You really don't know what you're going to get. You wouldn't guess that it's going to turn into a shuffle the way it does at this point. But I like this mix a little bit better because I can now hear both guitars playing. I can hear what Mick is doing. I can hear what Ken is doing. And that's a little more refreshing to me. So I have to say this mix so far would be my preferred version of the two songs.
Love. her dance took me by surprise. The way she wiggled her hips and she shook it out right between the eyes, looking for love.
So even with the backing vocals, I like this mix a little bit better. There's a little bit less kick drum in it, which I think is missing. You know, when you're going to do a shuffle that's not a double shuffle, I think it's really important to have a good, strong kick drum in there. And I think that that's a little bit subdued in this version. The rest of this part is the same. So I'm actually going to skip ahead to another part that we can hear a little better now. Yeah, I like that mix so much better because I can hear now what both guitars are doing with much more clarity. It's kind of a shame that they lowered the left channel a little bit on the final version, but this is a nice way to be able to hear everything that's going on. I'm going to play the final verse for you guys because I just love Lawton's delivery on it. I think it's fantastic.
After the show, she came and sat down, said, "Hi, son, what's your name?" I said, "Never mind that. Think about this. Loving's the name of my game." She said, "That's all right, but it'll cost you some." Said, "Tell me what's the price of the day?" She said, "20 down and a wind ring, and everything will be okay. Looking for love."
Yeah, I just think it's so great the way he did that. Just so impassioned. You kind of really feel like he was, like you're there when he's experiencing it as opposed to him even recanting the story to you. I really like that. I feel like I'm in the room, and that's a pretty powerful thing, especially for me, because, you know, you guys know me. I'm not a real big lyrics guy. I'm not one who, you know, memorizes all the words and sometimes even cares what the story is about. I just enjoy the sound of the song, listening to the vocals as an instrument. And when somebody can pull me out of that and make me actually want to listen to the words and find out what the story is about, that's a pretty nice moment for me. So I really like it. I think his delivery is fantastic. And, you know, I'm pulling for these two, even though I know it's going to end in disaster, because how doesn't it end in disaster? But, you know, there's a part of me that wants it to work out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play out actually the rest of the song, because I think that there's a lot of great riffing during this. I think the music sounds fantastic. It's very strong. And it makes me even sadder that this wasn't included on the album, because I think this is a great performance right here. But you guys listen and be your own judge. There it is, man. That is rock and roll right there. And it made me realize something too. This section that we just heard there, I think that's what this album is really missing for me. As much as I've enjoyed it, it was almost too straightforward for my taste. We needed moments like this. We needed more moments like this where, you know, there's at least some solo work or at least a more interesting ending than just repeating and repeating over and over again until it fades out or they stop it. You know, this is a band that really seemed to be having fun when they were recording this. They're being musically playful. John Lawton is just going for it. The guitars are doing some really interesting stuff. It's a great bass and drum groove. And I don't know if I've given the bass enough credit on this, but I really like the bass on this song. There's some really great stuff going on dynamically. And the backing vocals too. You know, they're not just singing straight notes. They're throwing some dynamics in there that are very nice. And it really makes this song more alive and more interesting to me. So I think if I were to have any criticisms of this album, there would be two things. One, just the repeated setup of having the vocals or the chorus being the opening for just about every song. And also just not having enough playful sections like this, because you know, think about who's on this album. We've got 5 incredibly talented musicians. They're great writers, they're great performers, and it really feels like they were, held back, whether it was by their own choice or by the producer or wherever it came from. It really feels like they were held back as musicians and that they weren't able to be the people that were accustomed to them being. Now, part of that could be the times. Part of that could be, hey, music is different now than it was when we did the last album. It's headed in a different direction, and they're trying to predict the market and say, we need to just be more straightforward. Don't get all crazy. Let's just do a simple album. Who knows where that came from? Could have been the record company, could have been the producers, it could have been the musicians themselves. It could have been a combination of any of that. It could be something completely unrelated that somebody heard and they're like, hey guys, we gotta do a simpler album this go around because it's not what the public seems to be wanting. I mean, who knows? At the end of the day, what I can say is that's the product, right? That's the end result that we get as listeners is a very straightforward album, almost too rigid for me. I like the album. Don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed every single song that's on it. But when I look back on it as a whole, and again, I haven't just sat there and listened to the album without doing anything else from the beginning to the end. But just thinking back on the songs, so many of them start the same way. So many of them have, a moderate fade out, but there's nothing exciting going on. And this song actually reminded me of that. And sad that it's the bonus track that's doing it, but that's what we need. I mean, we need these guys to be the guys that they are, to be the writers, to be the performers. And this song, for me, just kind of brought that back. Like, oh yeah, this is Uriah Heep. This is the band that does all kinds of interesting things because it's a very poppy album. They've said it's a poppy album, and that's fine. It's what they wrote. It's what they performed. But I think a little more, some more moments like this, like the end of this song throughout the album, I think would have made me feel a little more like it was a traditional album for the band. But, bands try things. They go in different directions. They experiment. Not everybody's going to like everything they do. Some people stopped listening to the band when David Byron was out, and that's fine. I think they're missing out on an incredible amount of great music, especially the last 3 albums that we've just covered with John Lawton. And it's really fascinating to me, some of the comments and things that I've seen. Like somebody will post, and this is really why I stopped looking at the forums, because somebody will post something like, oh, I love this song. It reminds me of, when I was 17. And someone else will post, oh, that's not a song you should listen to. You should listen to this one instead. I'm like, it's not even about the song. It's about the memory that they have that's associated with the song. But somebody's got to come in and say, no, you're wrong. Like you can't tell me my personal taste is wrong. You can say, I think differently and here's why, but maybe it's because you have a memory associated with a different song. Like I could look at Demons and Wizards and I can say, for me, that's a winter album. I heard it first in the late fall in Michigan. It was already cold. And, as we headed towards the holidays, that album really became one that I just listened to over and over again. And in fact, I had to make a second copy on tape because my tape was starting to wear out. And so for me, that's a winter album. For other people, that might be a summer album. Now, interestingly, the song Home Again to You is a summer song for me because I got that deluxe version in the summertime. And so the other songs for me are winter songs because I still associate them with that time of the year. Yet this new song off of the same album is a summer song. So for someone else, they might come in and say, oh yeah, that's definitely like a Halloween song for me. And it would be wrong of me to say, no, it's not. It's got nothing to do with Halloween because it's all that memory association. So that's why I stopped listening to the forums or really even going in and looking. I pretty much post and leave it there. And that's why, because there's just too many arguments over stupid, trivial things, people telling other people that they're wrong for what they like. And that's not what music is about. Music is about the enjoyment of the music. At least that's what I think it should be about. That's bands don't get together to say, hey, let's see what kind of controversy we can cause. I mean, there are a few that have done that. They've been, had some level of commercial success and that's been their game. But I don't really feel from Uriah Heep that they were like, hey, let's just get into a bunch of fights and have alcohol and drug problems and cause a bunch of controversy and then people will like us. No, they're musicians. And that's what the focus should be on, is the music. And so I get really just sad when I see the way that people react to some of this stuff. But for whatever reason, they made the album that they made. I'm very glad that they released these songs because I think they're wonderful songs. And I think there's merit to every single one of them. It's just that, like I said, for me, hearing this song, hearing the ending of this song that had a lot of life in it, makes me realize more so than anything else I've heard on this album, what this album was missing and why I think people do say it's too poppy, because it didn't have that extra spark that we're used to seeing. Doesn't mean the album's bad, doesn't mean any of the songs are bad. It's just a little bit different than what we're used to. And I think this is a fantastic song. This is probably, I might even say, one of my favorite songs on the album. You know, Come Back to Me will always be, because it always has that nostalgia factor and the fact that I thought it was a great song from the first time I heard it. But, you know, going through these songs, and like I said, to be fair, as you've heard on every single episode, I've enjoyed every song. But yeah, there's just something really magical about Struttin' and the way that it ended. And I have to say, too, you know, Give Me Love, it's just that we didn't get to hear it as well because of the way that the mix was. But great song nonetheless. I'm very sad to see season 12 end. It's weird to me to think that we're halfway through the current catalog of Uriah Heep. You know, 24 albums, we've done 12. That's half for those of you who hate math. Yeah, I can't believe we're this far. And that's awesome. And we've hit over 25,000 downloads. Thank you guys so much for that. That means so much to me that you guys are digging the show. So we're going to head into some really weird territory now for the next album. There was a transitionary period where there was a next album already started when, you know, things hit the head and members changed over again. I'm not going to get into the dynamics of that because I don't think it's that important for me. But what is important is that there was a changeover and there were recordings. That's such great English, of the next album. Now, the next album, some people say it was supposed to be 5 miles high. Some say it was supposed to be 10 miles high. From everything I've been able to find, it's basically the same album. Now, there was no official release of this album that I've been able to locate. There was a bootleg. And, you know, how does that happen? Somebody got a hold of the tapes, or somebody on the inside released something to somebody and it got out there. Because if it's not released commercially and it's locked in a vault in the studio, how else does it get out into the world? You know, no one would even know it existed. So something happened somewhere and that got out there. Now, I have not been able to find a copy of that bootleg. I have pieced together most of the songs from that album, and I'm going to be sharing those with you guys in two forms. So here's how it's going to work. It's going to be broken up a little bit. If the song matches a song that ended up on the album Conquest, I will do that as a double song episode. I'll say, here's the album version, and then here's the, you know, 5 or 10 miles high version, and I'll do both of those together. If it is a song that does not appear on the Conquest album, because I don't know what order it should have gone in or anything like that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch up with those songs once we're through the catalog. So we will revisit the remaining songs from the X Miles High album that never came out, that actually got out. And then we'll just do it that way. I think that makes it more sense, because it puts it in context with the actual album. We'll be able to hear a couple of different versions of the songs. I've listened to a little bit of it, and I have to say, it is pretty interesting. You really get to hear the dynamics of how a singer can affect a band on the whole, and, you know, just the dynamics that are different, the way that they choose to sing the songs or even different parts, how that affects the band. I mean, it's really, it's going to be an interesting study. I'll put it that way. But yeah, it's going to be a little crazy, because it's going to be, you know, not, hey, here's the demo version they did, and then here's the album version. It's, here's the original version with the band that doesn't exist anymore, and then here's the version with the band that's happening now with different people. It's going to be kind of weird because the styles are going to be different. So I think it's going to be fun. It's probably going to be the most challenging season, because it's the one that seems to have the most controversy. As far as I know, there are no other seasons that will be like this through the 24 albums. And I would imagine not going forward. I can't really see the band changing members at this point. I suppose it's always possible, but I personally don't see that happening. Yeah, why bother, you know? But yeah, it's going to be a fun season. So thank you guys for hanging out through the last 3 albums since Trevor Boulder and John Lawton joined. Now we have some changes coming up. We'll get into that into the next episode. So in the meantime, it's Tuesday. You guys have Wednesday to recover from this onslaught of information. And now you're overwhelmed and you should probably take the rest of the day off. Just go to the lake, just sit in a nice chair and just listen to the sounds of the water rush by. Let all the pressure and stress of what happens in the day just kind of wash off you. Hopefully there'll be a nice gentle breeze that you can enjoy. It's not too hot out. Maybe get an ice cream cone or something and just enjoy your day. And we'll be back on Thursday to start the whole new season of craziness. Enjoy, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me, for sharing, for telling people, for your reviews, for your ratings. I'd like to see some more reviews show up. It's been a while. Much appreciated. Thank you guys. Have a great day. Have a great Wednesday. We'll see you on Thursday. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!